We are joined by Lakers beat writer Tania Ganguli. How you doing, Tania?
Doing great. Great to be back here.
Are you excited to be covering it? I know LeBron comes. You got AD now. What's going on in LA?
Everything. It's always exciting. I mean, ever since I started covering this team in 2016, and it's been nonstop something happening. So now they've got 2 stars again. So we'll see how it works for them.
But where do you go from there? Everybody's talking about the Lakers. Need role players. My personal opinion, you bring another superstar, let them fill in. What's your take?
Well, we're not sure if they're going to have the money to bring in another superstar. So that's the first question. I think they could be really good. I think the Raptors proved that you don't have to have 3 superstars. You don't have to have even, I mean, you could make some arguments about different guys on the Raptors and how good they were, but their only superstar was Kawhi. So I think if they find the right players, they could become a really good team, a championship contender with LeBron, Anthony Davis, and the right players around them. Even if it's not a max guy, will the Lakers be able to find the right guys? Yeah. I mean, the way that they constructed their roster last year, it didn't really work for what they were trying to do. So that's an interesting test for them.
Now, they've got a sticky cap situation. Can you help break that down for us NBA laymen's, where they need some help from the Pelicans to get it, get the money in time. Anthony Davis potentially giving it away. So help.
Right now the Pelicans are kind of in the clear on this because the Atlanta Hawks traded for that number 4 pick. That deal is going to be executed on July 6th. So there was an extra about $4 million they could have saved themselves had they negotiated the deal to be later in July. So now that cuts off about $4 million. They also are going to need some help from Anthony Davis. In order to get a max slot, they're going to need Davis to give up his trade kicker, which is about $4 million.
$4 million?
Yeah.
Would you give it back?
Would I? No, definitely not. But I'm selfish.
You don't want a championship? That could be like
I prefer the money.
Oh,
okay. But, reporters were always thinking about ourselves. But I mean, he might, with the amount of money that he will have anyway, maybe he decides that it's more important to be able to fit another guy. But there's another factor too. They're going to have to trade several of their young guys, that remaining young guys. They've already traded 3 of them. So if they end up doing that, if they're able to convince Davis to give up that money, if they're able to trade away some of their other young guys, they're pretty much going to be starting from scratch with this roster. It's going to be Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Kyle Kuzma, and then from there, their draft pick, and then from there, it's they're going to have to just fill the roster with different guys. So there's a lot of work to be done, whether or not they can open up that max slot.
Now, speaking of young guys, DeAngelo Russell is swirling around in Laker free agency talk. Yeah. That would be a crazy story. First, he goes. Then he comes back potentially. What do you make of it? What's going on there? Is this even real?
I think it is. It could. I mean, I think that is a possibility. Here's the thing with DeAngelo Russell. I remember I was there for his second year in the league, which was my first year covering the Lakers. And there were so many. The Lakers coaching staff really felt like they weren't totally sure about his maturity level, whether he could run the offense, what kind of point guard he could be, and so, you could argue it 2 ways. On one hand, you could say they gave up on him and they decided that it was worth losing him in order to go and get the cap space they needed, which eventually led to being able to sign LeBron James. Yeah. There's that angle of it. But on the other hand, a lot of people really think that the player that he's blossomed into now, and the way that he plays now, that wouldn't have happened had he stayed in Los Angeles, that he needed to go somewhere else, have a change of scenery, learn a little bit more about the league and about himself. And from what I've heard, there's the veterans in Brooklyn. I mean, it's a pretty young team too. The veterans in Brooklyn were really good with him and sort of helped him along, and that he's become a very mature, and on some level this is obvious. People mature a lot from 21 to 23.
Yeah. You saw me, yeah.
All of us, I'm sure. So that'd be really interesting. And DeAngelo Russell is not really a ball-dominant point guard type of guy. Yeah. LeBron James likes having the ball in his hands. He likes being the playmaker. So it could be a really great fit if it ends up happening.
Wow, that's intriguing. We're Ryan Hollins here on the Rich Eisen Show. We're here with Tania Ganguli, Lakers beat writer. Am I saying that? Ganguli? Am I saying it?
Yeah,
Okay, all right. I'm not messing up. Help me out here. What do you make of LeBron James? I see he's been cool, calm, and collected amongst all the controversy. Seems like everything's kind of steering back towards his way, where all of L.A. Magic, steps down. Pelinka's doing stuff. Genie, the Lakers were on fire, but LeBron was calm. What do you make of LeBron's his demeanor? What have you seen?
He's sort of taken a step away from it right now. He's not really saying a lot. He's filming Space Jam. He's busy over the summer. And I remember the day that Magic stepped down, LeBron was supposed to talk to media that day, like right about at that same time. And he ended up canceling it because that shocked everybody. It took everyone aback. He was not expecting it, and he just sort of bowed out. So I think what he's done in this offseason is really tried to stay out of it, let it sort itself out. Of course, when just because he's staying out of it doesn't mean his interests aren't being looked toward, because Rich Paul, obviously, his job is to look out for all of his clients' interests. And he was very successful in being able to get one of his clients to LA. So, I think everything that they're doing is part of what they want to do is make LeBron happy. And I think that's talked about sometimes as a negative, but why would that be a negative? I mean, he's their star. He chose to come to this organization. I think it's reasonable to think that it's a good thing that they're trying to keep him happy.
So, Jeannie Buss is kind of, I don't know if she's been under heat. It's kind of hard to put somebody under heat who's not putting out certain energy. Are they Clutch Sports? Are they Rob Pelinka, Kobe Bryant? Is this the LeBron show? Who's is this the Ramba show? Who's calling shots in LA?
That's a complicated question. I mean, they have really given a lot of power to Rob Pelinka. And of course, what goes on behind the scenes is a little bit hard to say. I know that Rob was part of the reason Rob is in the position that he's in is because of Kobe. He was there on Kobe's recommendation to Jeannie. Kobe has remained a big part of the Lakers are a big part of his identity, so he's remained a big part of the franchise from that respect.
How close do you think Kobe is? Because we don't see him. We see him, but you don't hear about him. He denies reports. How close would you, if you had to take a guess, to the situation?
Well, Rob Pelinka, there was one time, maybe a year ago or so, when I asked him, how often do you talk to Kobe? And he said, well, he's my best friend. How often do you talk to your best friend?
Wow.
So I would have to imagine they're having a lot of conversations about life and other things, but also about the Lakers.
Wow. The great stuff. Wow. That is, Magic Johnson was honored yesterday. How tight is Magic? Obviously we know he stepped down, but we just get the feeling that he's never going to get too far away from the Lakers. What do you read or you heard of with Magic?
I think that there's some mixed feelings in the organization right now about Magic. Jeannie talked about it yesterday a little bit. She said, we're going to be fine. She sort of brushed aside the idea that they're having issues because of the way he's been talking about his time working for the organization. But I have to say, even after he stepped down, he was still talking to people in the organization. He was still communicating regularly with Jeannie. They sort of did like a little social media moment when they had dinner, and then they took a picture and posted it, and Jeannie kind of made fun of the idea that like, oh, everyone's going to be talking about breaking news, had dinner with Magic. but he was still very much in her life. She was listening to him. She was getting his opinion. I think towards the end of the coaching search is when that started to change a little bit, because he wanted them to hire Ty Lue. And when that sort of fell apart, I think that's when his influence became a little less prevalent than it had been before.
Now, we talked about Kemba Walker, possibly Brockman's a little fired up. Kemba going to the Celtics, possibly. But he's a name that's stirred up with the Lakers. Jimmy Butler's going to be available. Kevin Durant still. Kawhi Leonard, they're not closing the door on that. So what have you heard of any free agents, or what are the Lakers, better yet, their interest?
Well, their interests are very guard heavy, because once they execute the trade that they're about to execute, there's only one guard on their roster that has a guaranteed contract for next year, and it's Isaac Bonga. So that's what they need, and that's what they need to figure out, who is going to be their point guard. I mean, I think that's priority number one. Kemba is one of those potential guys, but I don't know. I mean, Kemba has said before that he wants to stay in Charlotte. There's different factors with that. Kyrie Irving, guy who's sort of made amends with LeBron recently and wants to leave Boston, but I think everyone sort of thinks that for Irving it'll be a New York team. That's where we get into talking about DeAngelo Russell. Like when you're talking about the next level of what point guards are available, that he's definitely up there. And if he becomes unrestricted, I think that could be an option for the Lakers.
So Tanya, the NBA I played in, LeBron James was the man. Mm-hmm. And there are free agents that would go crazy to play with LeBron James all the way, whether it was Miami, whether it was Cleveland. You wanted a championship. You want to be around greatness. Mm-hmm. Now, the word on the streets are, we see even with Paul George, guys are now turning down LeBron James. Join with AD, do you feel like he's kind of got his zing back? He's got his aura back? Is he have that same LeBron James name still, or is he still on the decline?
I think that playing with AD and LeBron James would have to be a really appealing idea to a lot of guys. When I think of Paul George, I think of it less as he declined LeBron and more as he declined the Lakers. Because
why is that?
Well, Paul George went into the summer before he got traded. He went into that saying, like, I want to be a Laker, I want to be a Laker. And I think it annoyed him that the Lakers weren't willing to give up what it took to go get him.
Wow.
And it meant a lot to him too. From what I was told, it meant a lot to him that the Thunder they gave up a young guy who turned out was a really good player. And I think that meant something to him. And he it's the year-long recruiting effort that Oklahoma City got to do. They got to show him what it would be like. He became close with Russ, all those things. So I really think for him it was more about that he didn't, he just didn't like that the Lakers didn't go get him when they could have, and liked his time in Oklahoma City. So, I would have to think that it'd be appealing, but the thing is, money really matters when you're talking about being able to go out and get free agents. Yeah. And the Lakers might not have what it takes money-wise to be able to go get one of the guys who's going to command a max contract, depending on what level of max that is. It's the NBA salary cap is endlessly confusing. But that if they can't, then they're just going to have to be really smart about how they spend. Right now, they're slated to have about $23.8 million. Yep. They're going to have to be smart about how they spend that and how they use that to fill out their roster.
So, Tanya, they made essentially the mistake with Paul George. They didn't go out and trade for him. Kawhi Leonard becomes available. Mm-hmm. San Antonio asked for the moon. They don't make the move for Kawhi Leonard. Did they make the same mistake again? Do you see Kawhi? There's zero chance he becomes a Laker?
I don't know about zero, but I would be really surprised if Kawhi Leonard became a Laker. And so I think that was the lesson that they learned when they went after Anthony Davis. Both times they tried to trade for him. First time they were unsuccessful, obviously. Both times there was a sense of this has to get done. This has to get done because this cannot be another year where the Lakers don't trade for this star who clearly wants to be here and miss out on him and then waste another. I mean, honestly, like if you don't get at least one other star this year, you're going to waste another year of LeBron's career.
Wow. Tanya, amazing stuff. You got anything you want to shout out social media? Any new stories popping up?
We wrote a story yesterday about what Jeannie said from the NBA awards, and just it was the first time she'd talked since all of this craziness started happening. So you can read that at the LA Times. And I'm on Twitter, Tania Ganguli. So
nice.
It's been great being on with you.
No, man, appreciate having you. Thanks for bearing with me. Ryan Hollins here at the Rich Eisen Show.
For more of the Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.